Hey, rock stars, what is going on? And welcome to another episode of Rocket Live. We are streaming right now live, and hopefully, you are checking us out on all the different platforms that we stream the show on, whether you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Welcome. My name is Chris Vaglio, and I am the CEO of Rocket Growth Agency, and I am so psyched to have a really awesome guest on today. And we will be introducing her in a little bit. But before we jump into that, I'm going to let you guys know about a few things as we do every time we do the show. And we want to start off with thanking some of our show sponsors. So first of all, would love to give a big shout out to one of our big show sponsors, Kerry Zarb, podcast marketing coach. Make sure you head over to kerryzarb.com/simple, and that will get you access to everything that she has going on. She is one of our official show sponsors. And so if you're struggling with your podcast and you're trying to get out there and get found and grow your audience, well, you definitely want to hit up Kerry Zarb because she has got it all figured out. And if you head over to kerryzarb.com/simple, you can download her free marketing tips as well as some of her other paid courses. So head over there now. Also want to give a big shout out to our other sponsor. There's Dr. Kristen right there hanging up on the screen. Hi, how are you? I love using StreamYard. So anyway, I want to say also a big thank you, a big shout out to our other sponsor, which is Win Local. I am a huge user of the Win Local share card. It's totally changed the way I network. And so if you head over to winlocal.com, you can use all these links in my show notes. If actually got a special code now. So if you go over to winlocal.com and use my promo code ROCKET10, you'll get an additional 10% off your share card. I'm telling you, this has absolutely changed the way I do networking. There's no more exchanging a paper business cards. You can give everybody a link you want. It's pretty awesome. So head over there to WinLocal and sign up online and use my code ROCKET10 and you'll get 10% off. Now, with all of that being said, I'm going to make this thing go away. There we go. I've got my awesome guest on today. And you're probably the first guest, Dr. Kristen, with all of these like titles and things at the end of their name. I don't think you may be the first guest I've had that has so many titles at the end of their name. I love it. It's great. It's awesome. But welcome to the show, Dr. Kristen Donnelly.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight.
You are awesome. So you have such a fantastic background, phenomenal background. So Dr. Kristen, she's a 4-time TEDx speaker, international empathy educator, and researcher with over 2 decades of experience in helping people understand the beauty and difference and the power of inclusivity. You're also one of the good doctors of Abbey Research, COO of their parent company, and an unapologetic nerd for stories of change. And you are residing outside of Philadelphia, which is, I being a New York Rangers fan and a New York Giants fan, it's we've got a nice little rivalry going. And yes, I've got a little Mets blood in me too. So,
my dad's North Jersey. My dad's a Giants fan. He's never converted to Eagles. So
okay,
we're a divided household.
He's not an Eagles fan.
He's not an Eagles fan. No, he just raised 2.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate taking the time to come out on the show today and then hang out and, talk to everybody a little bit about what you do. And so you and I, real quick for everybody listening. So our background, so the way I met Dr. Kristen is pretty much, I think everybody's going to guess, fill in the blank here, Clubhouse. It's one of the things I think I've said almost on every episode over the last year and a half is like, so I met this person at Clubhouse and now they're on the show. But I mean, really, that's how I've been meeting so many great and interesting people. And that's what the show for me has been all about since day one is just bringing people on that I find are interesting or inspiring. And, as I always say, rock stars in their own right, what they're doing. And I think that, and I've heard you talk so many times now in the different rooms we've been in, and I've watched your TEDx videos, and I've been, starting to dive into the videos you have on your YouTube channel. You have like a Dr. Kristen media empire. I love it.
Oh gosh. Well, certainly the media is me and my partner. So Dr. Aaron and I have been doing a YouTube channel for a couple of years, and there's a couple hundred videos up there for sure. So
yeah. It goes deep, everybody. But I mean, it's great and it's really good content. And I'm just scratching the surface, actually starting to watch a lot of it. But because I wanted to start out with your TEDx stuff first, I thought, because that was really, you had some really interesting topics to talk about. And
Well,
you
thank
know, we'll
you.
get into all that, but why don't you set the stage a little bit and let everybody know, you know, you are Dr. Kristen, but there's so much more to you than just the titles at the end of your name.
Sure.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
So it's so funny because my husband actually makes fun of me all the time for having too many letters. There are 6 letters after my name.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's just insane. And technically there's a reverend in front of it, which I never use. He's like, this is what more do you need? But he gets very, very frustrated. So hello, everybody. My name is Kristen and I grew up outside of Philadelphia and I moved back to my hometown, which is something that 17-year-old Kristen would have told you she would have never done. Um, and I have been for a long time really fascinated with humans. And I know that sounds trite or kind of, cheesy, but I am utterly fascinated with how humans work in groups together, why they do what they do, how they
Mhm.
function, all of it. People fascinate me. And so I started my career in youth work. And I went to school for youth work. I did youth work internationally. I taught sex ed as my first job out of college, actually. And then I went and got a couple more advanced degrees in social work and religious anthropology. And it was all chasing the questions of like, well, what makes humans tick? Like, what is it about
Right.
humans? What's going on? And the overall context of that is that I was raised in a family business. And my parents bought our company when I was 7, and it started off, it's now a network of companies, but our
Mhm.
flagship is a manufacturing company in
Oh.
a really under-resourced section of Philadelphia.
Wow. See, this is part
And
of your story I had not heard before. So this is fascinating.
yeah, I don't talk about it on Clubhouse much, but sometimes Sid will bring up that I'm a business like owner as well as
Mhm.
an entrepreneur and kind of what that
Gotcha.
looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my parents started it in 1991. My dad bought it with a business partner, and it's a dye house.
Oh, wow.
We manufacture dyes for pharmaceutical and chemical industries. And so, but one of the things that's really important is that my dad and his partner, my dad in particular,
Mhm.
decided that part of the point of this job was to bring back no skill manufacturing to
Oh,
this section of Philadelphia.
okay.
And so, one of the principles that we have always operated on is that there is always at least one job in this building that all you have to do is show up sober every day and on time, and we'll teach you everything else.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
So if you show up sober every day and on time, that's it. We're good. And so in that context is part of
Mhm.
how I grew up. And so we lived in a really white suburb. But my dad worked every day with people who weren't white or who didn't
Mhm.
go to the same schools as me or who didn't go to school at all or the houses looked different and all this kind of stuff. And so I was raised with this innate understanding that different people are different
Right.
and that where you were born does not determine your worth. It might determine the amount of choices that you have or the control you have over your life, but it does not
Mhm.
determine your worth as a human being. And I've carried that with me
Right.
throughout time. And so my little brother and I, after I finished my PhD, talked about we really wanted to take over for dad. That was happening, which when we were younger, we were not going to do. We wanted nothing to do with Abbey. We were going to go conquer the world. And then we were both like, actually, um, this fits really well with our passions and what we want to do. And
Right.
so Brian realized that college wasn't for him. He'd rather come back and work under dad. He's like, why am I trying to learn how to run any other business except under the guy that is running the business? So I did my PhD and everything else. And our conversation was, how can we use my training
Right.
in question asking and research and writing and cultural analysis and all of that to help the marketplace?
Right.
How can we take what higher ed taught me
Mhm.
and help people have better employees? And that was the fundamental question. And that has evolved into Abbey Research, which my best friend, Erin, we hired her when she finished her PhD. She and I now do this together. And what we do
Right.
is empathy education. And it's all under the auspices of the company. And we exist to impact lives and create wealth.
Yeah, see, I was gonna ask you about that too, because that's a term I've heard you talk about a lot is empathy education.
Yep,
And yeah, so and I think I'd like for you to kind of maybe dive a little bit more into
for
that
sure.
that term. I think it would be really helpful.
Absolutely. Empathy is something a lot of people assume means emotions.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm really empathetic because I can tell how you feel. Actually, it's a lot more to do with understanding and a lot
Mm,
less to do with emotions. If you look at all of the definitions and all the research, emotion shows up sometimes,
hmm
but understanding shows up all the time. And think about it. Can you really ever know how someone else feels? No.
No.
Do you know how you feel most of the time? No.
No.
So
No.
why are we assuming that other people can know it? But what you can do is seek understanding. You
Mm,
can seek context. You can seek explanations, not excuses, but explanations. And
right.
you can look to understand yourself and others better so that we can all have fuller human experiences. And that's what empathy education is that we
Mm,
spend our times helping people understand. This is a posture. This is a
yeah.
worldview. You make the decision to try to understand people instead of assume things about them. And
Right.
as you do that, you move into deeper relationship with yourself and others.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because just hearing you explain it, like it actually helps me understand it too. Because I think you make a great point right off the start of that. Is like, how can we ever know how everybody else is feeling? And on top of that, do we ever really understand how we're feeling? And I think about that. I'm like, man, I oftentimes have no idea how I'm actually feeling. It's like, and it feels like a mishmash of stuff. So I think that that's really interesting. Is that the empathy education and not really kind of projecting these preconceived notions of anything on anybody, and including yourself. Like it's because it's like it's too difficult to do.
Being a human's hard. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
hard work. And trying to and kind of moving through the world on a bunch of assumptions
Mm,
only leads to more pain.
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way, but you're right. It does. It's oftentimes too, I think it's like one of these things. It's the classic. And one of your TEDx's, I was just starting to get into, and then it like froze, and I couldn't finish watching it. I don't. It's fine. It's just, it's probably the server or whatever. But it was the one on with the friends and trauma, dealing with trauma, and how to not make
Mm,
things more painful. And
yeah.
I started listening to it before it froze. But what you were just saying though kind of makes a little sense of that, because it's like I think a lot of times we come from a place of wanting to help, and be
Mm.
empathetic, but really what we're doing is making actually something more painful than it needs to be without actually even realizing we're doing that.
Yes.
And I think that happens a lot. I know for myself, I mean, in all honesty, I've done that with like, oh my gosh, like I didn't mean to make this worse. I thought I was helping and I made it worse, you know?
It happens. We've all done it. I've done
Yeah.
it. Like I'll do it tomorrow. Like it's one of the fundamental things that we teach all the
Mm,
time is that growth and humanity, neither one of those things are linear. So you're going to learn this thing and then you're going to mess up and you're going to have to
yeah.
relearn it. This isn't all of these things that we're talking about are practices.
Right.
So let me say that up front. The other thing about that TED Talk, which was at TEDx Chicago,
Yes.
where I had the privilege of sharing that one back in October of 2021. The whole idea around it is that we tend to believe that trauma is comparable. So
Mm,
you hear a lot like, oh, well, it's not that bad. Or it's not like I have cancer. Or you
right.
also get like the maximizing where it's like, oh God, you think you have it? Like, shush, like you're
Right.
fine.
Right.
None of that's productive because none of it does what actually is needed to be done, which is just acknowledge the pain. I'm sorry you're in pain.
Right.
I'm sorry this hurts.
That's a great point.
That's it. And then depending on your relationship with the person, who knows? Do you need a hug? Do you need a casserole? Do you need a solution? Do you need me to go the hell away?
Right.
But you start with, I'm sorry you're in pain without judgment. It
Mm,
doesn't matter if you think this is a big deal or not. Doesn't matter. It matters that it disrupted that person's life. It rewrote their understanding of reality. It doesn't
mm.
matter what you think of their pain. It matters that you acknowledge their pain.
Right, and I think that comes into one of the classic statements, which is, "Man, I don't know what to say." Like when something happens, like when you get news like that, or someone loses somebody, and it's like you feel like the standard, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Please accept my condolences." But I say that, and then I feel like I don't know if that's really what I want to say, but I don't really know what to say.
I'm sorry you're in
And so
pain.
right, and so I think that it's like kind of without overthinking it, like it's the simplest the simplest explanation is usually the right one, right? So it's like
Yeah.
that
Like
is the way to
we want
go.
to be like eloquent and all this other stuff. But like, think about it. When
Yeah.
you're like, what do you want to hear from randoms? Nothing, really,
Yeah, mostly
usually.
nothing. I mean, it's
Mostly
nice that
nothing.
people are acknowledging it, but at the same time, especially when you're in a state, it's kind of like I don't
But
know if you
more
don't
than
have
anything,
anything
you want them
good.
to acknowledge that it sucks.
Yes, yes. Or, if you don't have anything really good to contribute, then it's okay not saying anything, you know?
Yeah, and so that's the like I think about it a lot. It's the example that Aaron and I use all the time is that we lost our grandmothers at the very similar time.
Mm,
And we had wildly different relationships with our grandmas. So if she had tried to say to me, "Oh, I know just how you feel,"
right.
that would have been a lie because she
Mm,
didn't have my relationship. And if she had tried to be like, here's what you need to do. You need to blah, 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 blah. She didn't have my relationship with my grandma.
yeah,
She didn't, my grandmother died a slow, terrible death from dementia. And I watched it happen. And the compounded trauma of caring for my aunt and my father
mm,
and figuring all those things out. Erin dealt with none of that with her grandmother for a host of reasons.
right.
And so she had no idea what I needed, but she could ask me.
Mm,
So I'm really sorry. Is there something I can do? No? Okay. Is there something I usually say what I do now is there something tangible I can do? How can I support you right now?
that's an interesting one. Is there
And if they
something tangible I
say,
can
I
do?
don't know, then you go away and you mail a gift card to DoorDash and let them sort themselves out. Everyone always needs fed. Whatever
It's
level
true.
of pain you're in, everyone always needs fed.
That's true. That's
Um,
what happens when you grow up in an Italian family. You're just like, food is the answer. The food,
Protestant
bring
family
food.
too, trust me. Here's
Yeah,
casseroles. But
bring food.
so another thing that I do is especially for death, I always set an alarm on my calendar 3 months out. And
Mhm.
that's when I mail them a gift card and I say, "Hey, I'm sorry, it probably still hurts."
You know what? That's actually I that's a really good one. I actually never thought about it like that because I know it, and I've always, it's like, the hardest part is usually when everything goes away and it's the few months later and everybody's kind of gone back to their lives, but you're still dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with, loss, pain, something, what are those things like,
Yeah.
and that's actually a really great point. See, I learned something today. See, all those letters on the back of your name are
All my
it
student loan debt is worth it.
in
So,
action.
yeah. And that's really what it comes down to though, is acknowledging
Yeah.
the humanity of other people. So what we're actually doing when we kind of
Hmm.
brush people's pain off is we are trying to put ourselves out of pain. We're trying to make
Right.
ourselves not uncomfortable. So if you live your life with centering the humanity of other people, you're going, which is an empathetic lifestyle, an
Yeah.
empathetic worldview, you are going to stop and think, what do they need right now? You're not
Right.
going to barge in there with like a bull in a china shop, like so many of us
Yeah.
do, and do what we would want. Maybe, maybe those things align, but maybe they don't. And that's
Yeah.
okay. So we
Yeah.
ask more
Good point.
questions. And people are afraid to ask questions to people in trauma because they're like, oh, it's like one more decision. They get to say, I
Right.
don't know. And then you still know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's true what you said too, because it's like we come in there like a bull in a china shop with what we would do to make ourselves feel better,
Hmm.
but it's not necessarily aligned with what's the best for the person we're trying to do whatever action for to,
It may or may not be. And like there are people
Right.
obviously like I was going through a lot of like very cyclical trauma in grad
Hmm.
school. And I had this one friend who absolutely knew that if I had a bad day, what I wanted from her was for her to clean my house.
Right.
That the greatest gift she could give me was to clean my house. So
That's pretty
did
good.
Joelle ask me what I needed? No, she just knew.
Right.
We'd been doing life together enough. And there was so many times that I came home from class to find a post-it note from her that said, I did your floorboards. I love you.
Hmm.
Done.
That's great.
Amazing. Cool. But like, I wouldn't have asked a lot of other people to do that.
Yeah.
So what it also does by asking in a certain way is allow that person to determine your relationship with them in that moment
Yeah.
because it's not the you show. Like you're not here to be the hero of their trauma, which so many of us try to be.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
What we've got to do is again, we've just got to center them. And this is counterintuitive. We as human beings assume that we are the default of what it means to be human. So
Right.
it's natural, it's biological, it's safe for me to be like, okay, well, Chris and I look alike. So we're going to want the same things because we're part of the same tribe.
Mm.
There is so many false statements in that.
Yeah.
that we haven't that have evolutionarily evolved, that have not evolutionarily evolved in our brains. But here's the good
So
news. You
true.
can rewrite neural pathways. So instead I can say, Chris and I have the same skin tone, but I wonder if that's the only thing we have in common, or I wonder if there's more.
That's a better way of putting it.
Why don't I ask some questions?
Yeah. Why don't I ask some questions and learn
who he is as a person?
Yeah.
Because maybe the way he humans and the way I human are different things. And my guess is that they are different, and it's good because, again, we go back to this. Being a human is hard, and we need a lot of examples and input and help. So if we all humaned the same way, this planet wouldn't work. So what we need is spaces where we can all be human together. And I know that sounds utopia-y and kumbaya-y, but it's super simple, but it's not easy. So getting here is work. Total work, but it's really straightforward. You just have to decide to treat people like people.
Yeah, I mean, once again, when you boil it down to its most simplest thing, that's kind of what it comes down to. You know, we're so good at getting in our own ways and overthinking things and projecting ourselves onto everything else that, you know, once again, it always comes down to the simplest answer, which is, you know, just keep it simple.
Yeah,
You know, I
and
mean,
simple doesn't mean
be a
easy.
human. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm glad you're saying that, because it's not easy keeping it simple.
Easy. But if we just boil it down, like you've said, get it to its simplest parts. Remember that the person in front of you is a person.
Right.
And proceed accordingly.
Yeah. I think that's real. That is good advice. That is good sound advice. And that's why, everybody, she's got the PhD at the end of her name.
That's why
and
I do.
the other ones.
All the other ones, yeah.
MSW. I don't even know what the
M.Div. It's a Master's of Divinity. It's a pastoral degree.
Okay. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen that one a lot. So I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Masters of Divinity. Master of Social Work,
cool.
Master of Divinity, Doctor of Philosophy.
Right.
None of them really mean anything except I'm very good at reading and writing.
And then, you know, like Mother of Dragons, Break for Chains.
Possibly. I think that's a little bit more.
That's you make those ones up. Like, what does MOD mean? Oh, Mother of Dragons. Oh,
Mother
okay.
of Dragons, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
My hair is not blonde enough for that one. I'll let Khaleesi handle that.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about, because this has been great, and there's so much, like, I have like so many other more questions, but I don't want to, you know, we could probably talk for 2 hours, but, you know, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the TEDx's that you've done. You know, you've done 4. You've done South Lake Tahoe, Farmingdale, Chicago, and Rutgers Camden, and you've got some really, like, the topics that you've talked about are very interesting. I mean, and they're sort of different, but yet I do, the ones I've watched, and I will say I haven't watched them all, but they do sort of follow a similar theme on things and patterns. So I mean, the 2 that I was watching, well, like I said, the one got stuck, so I got to finish watching that. But, you know, and the one that I really actually enjoyed too was the one of how embracing tolerance has failed us. And I thought that was really, I you know, first of all, I like the way that you present on stage. I think that I like your style. I think it's cool. It's just very, like, you know, it's cool, and it's got a nice rhythm and cadence to it. So
thank you.
I really, for me, like, that's, I identify very much with that style of public speaking. So I thought that was really well done. But why don't you talk a little bit about, maybe just if you could touch on each of these and sort of, like, you know, the inspiration behind them, what sort of was the spark or the fuel to, like, talk about, like, each of those topics.
Sure. So the first one's easy. I've been thinking about it for 20 years, in that every time we talk about diversity, what we really mean is Black people and white people in a room together. And then we're really confused as to why everything's still broken.
Right.
And what really hit me in, like, the year 2005, when I was living in Northern Ireland, is that the word tolerance is at the root of that problem. Because tolerance is entirely passive. Tolerance says, I will put up with you. Like, you can live over there. I don't need to know you, but I can't kill you. That's really all tolerance says. You are alive because it is illegal to kill you.
Right. Okay.
And if we want to actually do life inclusively, what we have to do, first of all, is understand what diversity means. and really empower that. So my contention is that diversity already exists wherever you go, because everybody is a diverse person. So racial diversity may not exist, and maybe you need more racial diversity, but you still have diversity because every human is a lot of things all at once. Where our socioeconomic status, where our education status, where our body ability, our neurodiversity, our weight, our age, our class, we're all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So you never walk into a homogeneous room. You never walk into a room where everybody's the same. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So let's call that out. And instead of trying to achieve a diversity that's very specific, perhaps we start with embracing what we already have.
Mm-hmm.
And creating an inclusive environment where everybody gets to show up on their terms and not yours. So no one's a token. No one is what you need them to be to fulfill a quota. You create a safe environment for people to show up on their terms.
Sounds right to me.
And to me, that's creating radical inclusive hospitality. Here is the way that we move forward, is to create radically hospitable spaces where everybody gets to be themselves on their own terms.
Right.
So that was it. And the reason I did that one first was if I only got one shot at a TED stage, if I had one message, that was it. It was that tolerance is my least favorite word on the planet. And when I hear it, I start to itch.
Right.
And so I applied. That's the first one I applied for. South Lake Tahoe said yes about 2 weeks after I applied.
Wow.
In March of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were off like a rocket. And then after that, I had a coach who I still work with. She's my mentor. Her name is Trisha Brooke. And she just kind of said, okay, you've got more ideas in there. Let's go. And Aaron and I looked at our business model, and the way we understand empathy is in 3 pillars. And one is in teaching people about equity and inclusivity.
Right.
Another is talking about trauma. And another is talking about boundaries, self-care, and exhaustion. And so we said, okay, well, what if we try to get TEDs for all the pillars?
Yeah.
What if we do that? So I ended up getting 2 TEDx's. The next 2 were on trauma. Farmingdale is about how there is no such thing as back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And normal is just a setting on a tumble dryer. And so putting your head down and saying, oh, COVID is over because it's over, is only going to perpetuate the trauma that COVID has caused. And I talk about Northern Ireland in that, and watching how Northern Ireland has moved chronologically on from the Troubles, but not emotionally on from the Troubles.
Right.
And then you mentioned the Chicago one, which is that trauma is not comparable, which was amazing. And then I got the opportunity to do Rutgers Camden. And because Rutgers Camden happened in the middle of Omicron, it went virtual. And so my team produced a film on site at my factory, and it's about my family business. And
that's cool.
About the idea that people are not replaceable. That's a lie.
Right.
and the more we say it, the more damaging it gets. And so that's kind of it. I mean, all 4 of them are about the idea that people are people and how we can move forward as humans. I try to make them really pragmatic. There's at least one takeaway in each one of them where you can go and do something different.
Right.
But yeah, I did. But all 4 were in 8 months, and now I'm on a break. Now I get to pause.
That's good. No, it's great. I mean, listen, it's an amazing amount of content to put out there in that space in a relatively, short amount of time.
And I'm so grateful.
Kudos to you, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It is. I did 2 of them in 5 days, and that was a lot. So I did Farmingdale on October 9th, and then I flew and did Chicago on October 14th.
Wow.
And that week was a lot.
Yeah.
I definitely just face planted in my hotel bed in Chicago, but I have an incredible team around me. My best friend, my husband, my coaches. I have friends that flew out from Philadelphia to Chicago to see me. I have friends in Chicago Clubhouse. Shout out to Crystal Fox, who's part of our community, who came and hung out. So I am never alone, which is utterly incredible. So it's a real privilege to be the deliverer of these messages that so many other people have helped me formulate.
Yeah, well, I just got to say it. I mean, it is quite an accomplishment to not just do one, but to actually, do 4. And
thank you.
And I think that just speaks to, obviously the quality of your content and the power of the message that you're putting out there. So I think that's I mean, it's pretty awesome. I mean, I haven't met a lot of people who have done 4 TEDx's. I've definitely met a few that have done 1 to 2, but to do 4 is it's definitely quite an accomplishment. So kudos to you for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk to, because one of the other things, so I want to just transition a little bit, because we were talking about a lot of the content you've been making and Abbey Research and the foundation of your messaging and all that. But so one of the things I really I think another reason why I've sort of become a fan of yours too, and why we're connected on Clubhouse is because I always love to watch the way people put themselves out there, in a way of like utilizing, the technology and the platforms that make sense for them, and I've always been an advocate. Like, listen, you use what is comfortable for you. Don't worry about what I do, or don't worry about what Dr. Kristen, like, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You do you, and then you grow from there. And that's where you experiment, spend time, get comfortable, watch, learn, like try things out. It's okay. It's not gonna, you're not gonna, it's not gonna be the end of the world if something doesn't go the way you want it. But I really like how you've been able to build a really great community on YouTube, because it's something I've been trying to do, and countless others, and it takes a ton. And for everybody out there, like, if you're trying to do it or you're thinking about doing it, like, do it, but it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of building and effort to do. But you have really built a nice community on YouTube. You have a lot of great videos. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, Twitter, of course, LinkedIn. You're doing the Culture Cast podcast. So you're really taking advantage, I think, of being all the different ways to spread and utilize your message. So just bringing it back to YouTube, what have you found as far as, or what can you maybe attribute to the success of YouTube? Is it because you've done the TEDx stuff and it's gotten you a lot of attention? No. So where are you finding the most success with YouTube? Is it word of mouth? Is it your topics, your search? Like, just
we think it's our topics, because all of our highest rated videos are our analysis of television shows. So
interesting.
we do episode by episode breakdowns of The Handmaid's Tale and Bridgerton and The Crown, and Dope Sick. And we're about to start The Dropout, which is the Elizabeth Holmes series. So that's a huge part of what we do, is we do empathy education through cultural analysis. So that's it. I mean, honestly, if you look at our numbers, it's people coming for The Handmaid's Tale. It's people coming for The Crown. It's people coming for Bridgerton. And then they pop up in our comments and tell us where we're wrong. And that gives us an algorithm bump. And then the algorithm, keeps, like, one of the most successful videos recently is we talked about this documentary on HBO called The Way Down, which is about Gwen Shamblin and the Way Down workshop. I think we're one of the only people talking about it. And we talked about it because I went through it. I went through the Way Down workshop when I was 11 at my church.
Interesting. Okay.
And so we ended up doing what we call a hot-ish take, which is like, we don't believe in hot takes, because we need time to analyze things. So we do hot-ish takes instead. So we did you'll see it right there. There's the series. So we did a hot-ish on Gwen Shamblin, and that one has like 7,000 views or something nuts. And we do very little to promote. Like, we do very little. So yeah, you'll see those we just put it in playlists. We make sure they're professionally edited. And I have a great editor on our team. Our podcast is our YouTube content stripped and put on a podcast.
Right.
So we don't redo. The other major series that we do that brings in a good deal of traction is called the Colonizers World Tour. And we spend a week in a different country around the world, 6 months out of the year, researching the effects of colonization on that country.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, we did a whole week on Guam last year, and there was a couple Guamanians who came on to be like, oh, this is amazing. Okay, here's what you need to know. Right. And then those were a bunch of algorithm bumps, and we got to learn more. So our promise to you is that we'll respond to every comment that isn't abusive. Right. And we'll talk to you about whatever you want. And I do an interview series called Welcome to My World that I get to chat to folks. But yeah, I mean, there's weeks we're putting out 4 or 5 videos a week. Right. And then there's other weeks where we put out none. But like we cover Hallmark Christmas movies. Right. And we talk about why it's such a problem that the Oscar nominations are so incredibly white. Yeah. And we talk about current affairs, like we talk about the Larry Nassar abuse case a lot, things like that. Yeah. So that's it. What it comes down to is our topics. We don't understand marketing. We are we have hired very smart people that are helping us figure out how to do marketing,
Right.
but it's not our natural thing. Content creation is our thing.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do anything else.
Well, no, but listen, I think it's great. And so this is the stuff that I love talking about because I want people who listen, the whole point of doing the show too is because I want to bring people on who I find are interesting and I just feel like they're good at what they're doing. Is that what's great about your story is everything you just said just now. Like, I think everybody needs to understand you do not need to be a marketing expert to create content. You just need to be really passionate about what you do and just be knowledgeable about what you do and have fun with it. Like, so you're taking what you're doing and you're applying it towards these breakdowns. And I think that's a great way to use your already inherent skill that you already have that you've learned to do, and that you're applying it towards, other things that you like, which are these shows. And I think that the topics things are really key. And I think that's the big takeaway here is like, first of all, don't get stuck saying, hey, I don't have a marketing and an MBA in marketing, and therefore I can't do a YouTube channel. That's not the case. It's what you literally did. Hey, I want to do a YouTube channel. I wanted to create content. We went this way. And as we began to do it, we evolved, because I'm sure you didn't just start here overnight and then have like,
No.
1,000 followers and,
No.
thousands of views on your channels. That's not how
No.
it goes. But then you learn, right? You do it, you learn, you grow, you go, oh, people really like when we talk about this. Okay, great. So maybe we should do more of that. And by the way, I enjoy doing that. So it also helps.
And YouTube's a search engine. So
Yeah.
it's really helpful for us. I mean, we started with Handmaid's Tale because I have a PhD in religion and gender, and Aaron has a PhD in imprisonment studies.
Right.
And if there was ever going to be a television show that the two of us could talk about, it was going to be Handmaid's Tale.
There it is.
So we just said, you know what? All of this, like, we're watching the recaps and we're like, you guys are missing some really important things. Okay. Oh, you don't know that that's a purity culture call out. Oh my God. Okay. I better make a video. So you watch season 1 of the Handmaid's Tale. The videos are like 10 minutes because we don't really know what we're doing. And now they're upwards of 45. And they're professionally produced and we have clips and everything else.
Yeah.
We just started throwing spaghetti at the wall in 2017. And then when lockdown hit and we were looking at the rest of our business and we said, what is the most fun?
Mm-hmm.
And we said, it's YouTube.
Yeah.
So we have the most fun. We get the most engagement there. Let's scrap a lot of other stuff we're doing. We scrapped about 4 of the series that we were doing on YouTube that wasn't getting any traction that we felt guilty doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I'm done. This is fun and it's serving people. And so let's chase it.
And there you go. I mean, exactly what you just said. So I hope everybody who's either watching or listening to this just heard that right now, is that the number one reason was fun. And then the things that weren't working, shocker, you stopped doing them. It's that easy.
Button, the delete button is very powerful. It fine.
Is.
Yeah.
It feels it's very therapeutic when you hit the delete button. I know.
It's fine. And I'll say, so just in full transparency, we didn't hit 1,000 subscribers until December of 2021.
Right.
So that was a 4-year growth arc for us.
Right. It's not like you created a YouTube channel, put up some videos, and in 30 days had 1,000 subscribers.
Absolutely not. And like, I don't know if TED will ever bring more YouTube subscribers because I can't share TED on my channel. It has to live on their channels.
Yeah.
For intellectual property. So, we're not makeup stars. We don't talk about true crime and we're not TikTokers. And so we're not going to be fast growth people on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're monetized and that was the goal. And now the next goal is to get enough that they let us actually do community engagement on YouTube. We need a couple thousand more people to do that. So that's what we're working towards. And in the meantime, we do all of the other things that actually make us money. But we see YouTube so much as a service.
Yeah.
And we honestly just have the damn time of our lives doing it.
I think that to me is actually the most important part, because, with all the content creation that, we all do, like I do it. It's not like even this show, like, it's not like, and people ask me like, oh, Chris, you do the show. Like, are you getting like, you must be getting like huge numbers. And like, I'm like, no, it's a very modest show. It's not, I don't get thousands of people like watching or downloading the show. I didn't really start it for that. I started because it's fun. I like doing this. I like going live. I like talking to interesting people. Like that's what I want. That's what I get out of it. And then the ability to be able to share, the stories that I'm hearing from everybody and they can listen to is like, that's really it. if things go this way or that way with it, then hey, great, like wonderful. But that's not my number one goal. My number one goal is I do it because it's fun. And then the other things that come along with it are like, to me, the bonuses of having that content. Same thing with my other show that I do too with Amanda. It's a fun show. We do it because we love doing it and we have a blast. We have so much fun making it and creating it. So, when it comes for content creation, I think that what you just said is really got to be your number one guiding factor. Like, it has to be fun for you. But then once you start doing it, it's okay to begin to measure it. It's okay to switch course. It's okay to find out, yeah, I don't really like doing this part of it, so I'm going to change it and switch it up or make it better. And I'm going to learn the data of like the feedback. Okay, hey, people like it when I talk about this. Great. And I like talking about it, so I'll just do more of that. Like, that's all okay to do. And so I hope everybody understands that if there's a big takeaway to get out of that when we talk about content and the whole roadblocks, oh my God, I got to do all, it's like, pump the brakes, keep it simple, and do the things that make fun for you. And if it's YouTube, then do YouTube. If it's LinkedIn, do LinkedIn or IG or TikTok or whatever it is. Like, do the thing that you have fun with, and just do it. Like, that's it.
Life is short and it's hard. Find your joy.
Boom. I love that. And so I know we're getting short on time, but I can't let you leave without at least quickly. I know it's hard to say when you say quickly, but I know you're a big MCU fan.
Yep.
I also am a big MCU fan. So I know that you have some thoughts on MCU.
I do.
So why don't you give me your brief MCU thoughts? I'd be interested to hear those. So I want to see if we're aligned.
Okay. So my first one is that the Cap who went back in Endgame is a Skrull, or there's something we don't know about him, because I don't think it fits into his narrative that he would go back to where he couldn't be friends with Sam. So there's something there that we don't understand, but I also understand that the Russos think they told that story very well. So I will also accept that, like, if I look at their narrative, they think they convinced us that Peggy was Endgame. I don't think they did, but I think they did. The other thing is that I think it's ridiculous that Tony died, because what they should have done is Cap and Thor and Tony should have all held hands and done the stones together. There was no need for him to die. But again, narratively, I understand that we were doing the sacrifice growth arc and Downey wanted out. Fine. But in terms of the actual canon of the characters, it makes more sense to have the three of them do that. And then all of them are scarred, but none of them are destroyed.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I never thought of that one. So that one's very good.
I am okay that Black Widow died. I think that makes sense because of her ledger, but we should have gotten the Black Widow movie a long time ago.
100% agree with that. I couldn't agree with that even more. I agree with that like 10,000.
I love it, because those of us who read the comics and know the characters, I think we felt that loss even more in Endgame, and everyone should have been given that gift.
Yes.
For me, the current Tom Holland is my favorite Spidey. And I'm very happy. Great. Like, he's so good. And Zendaya is so good. I also will die for Bucky Barnes, and like, will just die for him. And in my headcanon, Tony built his, like, one of his arms. And they were friends while Tony was alive. So yeah, I mean, I write fan fiction for the MCU. It's like one of the things I love doing. So my big ones is that something's up with Cap, which we'll never explore because Evans is out and he's allowed to be. And that there was the other thing too is that Civil War is the lowest hanging fruit. That was very clearly two dudes in a room telling a story without any sort of nuance. There was other ways to get us to Civil War without Tony was never trying to kill them in Siberia. If he wanted to kill them, he would have killed them. He was in grief and mourning and trauma, and he just needed to take a breath. Yeah. And all of that was, we just watched grown men having a temper tantrum over trauma. Yep. And we could have had a much more fun conversation about it if they would have let women and people of color into the writer's room, instead of just two white dudes writing it.
I like the way you frame that. I think that's really interesting. And yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Some of the theories I hadn't thought about. Definitely the Cap and Skrull thing is something I've discussed behind closed doors. But I have and
I
I
mean,
know.
I'm not the only one with
Yeah.
it. A lot of
No,
people are
no,
like, really?
I think the minute you introduce the scrolls and the fact and you got
Yeah.
two different furies, it's and by the way, we've got multiverse now, so it's like
Yeah.
and
Who the hell knows?
and we're in comic book land. So in
Yeah.
comic books, nothing is off the table. There's only
Ever.
one absolute, two absolutes. Is that Uncle Ben will always remain dead, and that Thomas and Martha Wayne will always remain dead. So other than that, and even
I mean, like,
Thomas
there's a
Wayne came
whole
back in
run.
Flashpoint. So
I know, like, there's a whole run of comics, if people don't know this, where Tony's adopted.
yeah, yes.
Like,
Oh my
there's a
gosh, yeah,
whole, like, where he's a genetically engineered child that Howard built in a lab. Like,
yeah.
have fun. I love comics for that reason.
Yeah, well, that's why
But
they're
yeah.
comic books. You could deal with anything. It can be as fantastical as you want because
Yeah,
it's
but
not
within the
real.
MCU, the only other thing that counts is that actors want out, and Evans was ready to eat hamburgers, and like that's totally fine. He's done.
Yeah,
So within the MCU, I don't think we'll see that version of Cap again. Will we see the character? Sure.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, and I like some hot takes. Did you saw the latest Spider-Man movie?
I actually haven't because
Okay.
I'm not ready for a theater yet, but I know everything that
Okay.
happened. I'm
All
just
right.
not ready for a
All
theater.
right. Well, then I don't want to talk about it because there are great moments that you just need to see to
Yeah,
get
I'm
this.
waiting
So,
for it to be on
yeah.
Disney Plus and then I'm blocking my
All right.
night.
Have you seen the Doctor Strange trailer yet?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm very excited about that. Did you watch all the Disney Plus series so far? Have you watched all the series?
I did
Have you-
not because I don't like Wanda.
I'm telling you,
You are not we did a whole movie. We did a whole
it
episode on it.
is not what you think.
I don't think I just don't I can't I just don't know if I can spend that much time with Elizabeth Olsen. And I just haven't gotten around to Loki yet. But I watched Falcon and Winter Soldier and we did episode by episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I was doing those too
Um
for a little bit on my other podcast,
yeah.
but yeah, that was really great. I really
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, like, I have as a Bucky
Mhm.
aficionado, I have some feelings about where they COVID cut and like what we could have played with a little bit more.
Right.
But no, I thought it was genius. I want to see Loki. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Here's my thing.
I
I don't
really
rewatch the movies.
Mhm.
I'm into the
Okay.
characters. And
Right.
I like what my friends and I do with them better than I like what canon does with them. So I
Well,
spend most of my time
that's always the
writing and
case.
reading fan fiction.
Our headcanon is always better than what's
Always better.
headcanon's always better.
Always better.
Yeah, I would actually love to talk with you after you watch Loki.
Okay.
Because I think we would have a great discussion about it. Or I'd love to be in on a round table or whatever. I think it'd be a lot of fun to do. I really enjoyed Loki. I will probably watch it again for sure because I feel like I missed some pieces. But anyway, so I like your hot takes on the MCU. That is great.
Excellent. I'm glad I'm approved.
That you are approved, and I can't wait to talk to you more about MCU stuff in the future for sure. All right,
Yeah.
so before I let you go, I have one last question for you, and then
Okay.
we'll wrap it up. Hot take, or actually just question, not hot take. But if you had a warning label, what would that warning label be?
Oh my gosh, that is one of the best questions I have ever gotten on any podcast, and I do these all the time. So let me think. My warning label would be might cause life change.
I like that. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. That's a good way to wrap it up. I like that. I think that would be that's a good shirt. Warning, may cause life change.
I will I'll get all my cricket friends on it. So
yeah, there you go. You do all that. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for hanging
Chris.
out with me today and talking. And I hope everybody out there enjoyed the conversation. Thank you all so much for watching live. And for everybody who will watch the replay of this and also listen to the audio version later on, make sure you connect with Dr. Kristen. All the links are in the show notes. They're in the video description everywhere. Every single thing's there. You can connect. Go to her website, which I have up on screen, which is Abbey-research.com. Of course, this is also in the show notes as well. So you can check that out. And I know because I was on it that you've got links to the TEDx talks are on there, right? Portals to there, links to your podcast, which is the Culture Cast podcast, and all your social. So everything's there. Plus, I did put everything in the notes as well. So
Thank you
make
so
sure you check
much.
all that out. Any final words before we wrap it on up?
Whatever you're doing great. I promise. It's not trite. Everybody is doing their best, and I know you are too. You take a nap and chase your joy.
Well said. That is perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on today. And once again, I do thank all of you who hanging in there today. Make sure you please follow or subscribe wherever you're watching this or wherever you're listening to it. So that way you get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Make sure you support our show sponsors, Kerry, Zarb, a podcasting coach. Go over to kerryzarb.com, and also Win Local. Head over to winlocal.com and use the code ROCKET10 on checkout to get a special discount when you sign up for that. So with all of that said, thank you once again. See you guys next time, another episode of Rocket Live. And remember, always be authentic, always be yourself, and always remember to rock it. See you guys.